Ladies and gentlemen, I think we might finally have the first signing under the Clear Lake Bully regime. His name is Raheem Sterling. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. Essien! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is a special edition, transfer edition of Couch Critic, where we're going to be looking at the Raheem Sterling pending deal to Chelsea. We're going to be looking at the pros and cons, obviously from a tactical perspective. We're going to be looking at the benefits of having a Raheem Sterling in a Thomas Tuchel setup, and of course the cons, the negatives that come with it as well. But you know what to do, guys. Before we get into all that, you know I have a sponsor. They go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, so apparently Chelsea have reached an agreement over personal terms with Raheem Sterling. It's been long rumored, maybe more than a month right now, that Chelsea have been in for Raheem Sterling and have reached an agreement with Man City in and around £45 million, with add-ons taking it to £55 million. And the last thing that was left was the co-sign from Raheem Sterling. And apparently, if you go by what we're hearing from Matt Law, very trusted source in the Chelsea community, we have agreed terms with Raheem Sterling for in and around $300K per week. With bonuses as well. If he reaches those targets, it could get to a higher number. But yes, apparently we have Raheem Sterling, and what we're going to do with this video right now is examine just the pros and cons of having somebody like Raheem Sterling playing for a Thomas Tuchel side. We're going to be looking at what the benefits are and what the negatives are, and whether or not this is a glove in hand fit for Chelsea. Now, for me, the valuation of Raheem Sterling is right in line with what I think he is as a player. He's a guy that can give you good minutes over the course of a 90, but isn't consistently giving you those A1 performances. He's a guy that, one every 3 or 4 games, you'll see a brilliant performance from him. So the price of 55 million pound is exactly in line with what I feel like he can deliver at Chelsea. If it would have went anywhere from like 55 to 65 million pounds, I probably wouldn't be as enthusiastic about adding a guy like Raheem Sterling to the side. But at the 45 million pound range and up, I'm quite comfortable with what he offers. He's a guy that can score goals, can assist goals, can take guys on, uses his pace to devastating effect, is very direct. And these are all things that we can use in this setup right now under Thomas Tuchel. Now, clearly, every year in, year out, Chelsea struggle to score goals. We struggle to find somebody who can consistently perform, give us that 15, 16, 17 goals a season in the Premier League to help us, elevate ourselves to, a Premier League title contention. And with Raheem Sterling, I think in concert with other signings, I think we may have addressed one of the major needs in this club right now. Obviously, Raheem Sterling is a consistent goal scorer, has been since joining Liverpool when he was about 17 years old. Double-digit goal scorer from then on out with Man City, and has only really gotten better year after year. In the prime of his career right now at 27, and a guy that, consistently finds double-digit goals, which is exactly what we need from wide areas at Chelsea. Now, when you examine Raheem Sterling's game, the things that will stand out for you right off the bat are his electric pace and his ability in 1v1 situations. When he gets 1v1 with a defender, he can put the fear of God in them, really, because he's just so threatening, whether he's going inside or outside, because he has that pace and he has the technique to control the ball, close control, and get into tight areas with ease. He's also very adept at drawing fouls in key areas, and a guy that, of course, when he's using the ball and when he's getting to these dangerous areas, doesn't necessarily have that tunnel vision. He's also adept at picking his head up and looking around and looking for, the next pass that might lead to the goal and whatnot. So in the final third, I think he is a very, very effective attacker, a guy that Chelsea can utilize in that final third for his ability not only to just unlock the defense, but to also, destabilize it and get the ball into areas where, somebody else like a Havertz or a Mount or somebody that could get on top of it and finish. To keep it short and simple, this guy is a fluid goal-scoring winger, a guy that can play in all 3 positions in the attack that we have on offer, and a guy that when you put him there, he understands what to do in those positions. I mean, you don't play as many games for Pep if you do not understand how to attack the box, make runs off the ball, play in your teammates, all of these things. I mean, obviously they create a hell of a lot of opportunities, and that's something you can probably use to mark against Raheem Sterling when he's coming into this Chelsea side, just the fact that like we don't create a lot of opportunities the way Man City does. You know, we have to be extremely clinical when we're playing against teams that, you know, have defend deep in the box and whatnot, and do not, you know, have spaces that we can manipulate the ball through and whatnot. So not the way that Man City does, at least. So there is something there to be had there when you say, you know, Raheem Sterling may not be the ideal glove in hand fit as far as the answer goes, because at Man City they create 5, 6, 7 opportunities a game, whereas with Chelsea, you know, our opportunities to score is like 2, 3, 4 at best. There is that to take in consideration. Is he clinical enough? Was he going to take the opportunities, you know, that are presented to him enough for us to be effective and, you know, justify paying him over $300,000 a week? Given the circumstance and given what he does have on offer, the things that he does do at an elite level, you know, really threaten the back line, a guy that is very direct in his attacking prowess, a guy that, you know, times his runs extremely well, bends his runs, knows how to bend the run to get in behind. You know, when he gets in front of goal, knows what to do. When he's out wide, knows that he's to play unselfishly and play in guys. He's often in and around 6, 7, 8 assists a game, or a season, sorry. These are all things that you can attest to being, you know, a very effective winger. A guy that is a complete winger in a lot of ways. So there are other aspects that we're going to have to look at as far as cons go, but in terms of an attacking winger, Raheem Sterling is one of the better ones in the world right now. But we all know in a Thomas Tuchel system, it's not just what you do in possession of the football, it's also what you do out of possession that is very important to executing his game plan effectively. And on display right now, I would say that Raheem Sterling does not necessarily have the off the ball ability. Obviously the runs off the ball, the timings of the runs, and, you know, the ability to recognize when he can get in behind, and, you know, the recognition is excellent. I'm talking about more the pressing aspects, the defensive like awareness aspects that, you know, a complete side need in order to, you know, be European champion. I'm speaking more obviously about, like, you know, putting the pressure on the defense. Obviously he's got blazing pace and can, you know, cover ground really quickly, but when he does that, is he putting enough pressure on the defense? Is he showing press and putting enough pressure on the defense to produce turnovers? And on display at Man City, granted, they don't necessarily use their attackers in a fashion to win the ball. Obviously, that's left to the midfielders like Cancelo, Rodri, even Foden was very effective at it when he played in the midfield. You know, those types are the ones that are actually snapping in and winning the ball. Whereas, you know, they used, you know, Raheem Sterling to just funnel the movement to wide areas where they can like just pounce on them. So I guess in that respect, you can say that he can be utilized in that front. But I think that the way Chelsea use their attackers, there has to be an impetus, and the usage has to be extremely high. And, you know, for the usage that we see from Raheem Sterling, I think he's put like maybe 13 pressures on per game and was successful maybe 3 or 4 times a game. That's not as effective as, you know, say somebody like, I don't know, Mason Mount, who obviously works extremely hard out of possession. Phil Foden works hard out of possession. You just think that if he comes into this Chelsea side, he has to know that he's not going to be a passenger, and whether or not he's willing to be a willing runner, like, you know, 16, 17, 18 attempts a game. Can he do that effectively and be, you know, a conduit for our press being successful? Just not sure about that yet. You can show press a lot and be good at like you know, closing spaces really quickly, but if you're not producing the turnovers, or you're not moving as a unit, you don't recognize when to go as a unit, it could be detrimental. I'm not sure he has that ability yet, but, you know, I'm willing to see what he can do. It's just going to be, for the amount that we're paying this guy, over $300K a week, the ask has to be the demand, and he has to be able to execute that. Like, I think a lot of the problems that we have with some of our attackers is that we use them in these high press sequences so often that once we win the ball back and we get into the final third, you know, there's a fatigue factor there. So Chelsea use possession to rest, recuperate, and then go again. Whereas in teams like Man City, where they don't put a lot of stress on their attackers to win the ball back, yes, they do press high, show press high, but the ball's being run in the midfield. They have a lot more energy and reserves when they're required to be most effective. We certainly have our midfielders involved. Obviously, Jorginho, Kanté, Kovacic are very important in winning the ball back. But, you know, that first line of the wave of the press is paramount to us winning the ball. And I'm just not 100% sure that Raheem Sterling is the kind of guy that presses the ball effectively to produce those turnovers. And you heard me say earlier that we're talking about recycling possession and Chelsea using that as their, restoration when we're getting in, when we're in the attacking scenarios. And, I'm just not quite sure if Raheem Sterling was ever used as a guy to help recycle possession at Man City. He was kind of like the guy that was just, their direct runner, basically their Timo Werner, a guy that doesn't really involve himself in the build-up very often, but basically in the final third is the guy that you're supposed to be using to, put pressure on the defense, the guy that can stretch the field for you. And he's exceptional at that. But I'm thinking that when Chelsea try to be, retain possession and, recycle it and just, use the ball, is Raheem Sterling going to be the guy that, can take on 30, 40, 50 touches a match and, use it effectively? Don't think that he's shown me that quality yet, a guy that can, be involved in the build-up and be effective there. I think he's more of a guy that can be used as a finisher of moves rather than a guy that can initiate. And that's no knock on him, and that's not something that I think we should use a stick to beat him with. I think that that's still a very useful skill set, a guy that can get on the end of things and stretch the defense. But I'm just saying, if we're looking for an overall attacker, a guy that can do all the things that we require our wingers to do, be fluid, not just be a guy that can stretch the line, but be a guy that can be used in the half spaces to, combine and, keep the ball ticking over. I'm not quite sure he's that player. And that may be where a lot of the discrepancies is with some of the things that we're looking for in our attack. Can he be the guy that can help us build attacks? Can he be the guy that is, the conduit for our attack as well, the guy that's keeping it ticking over? Perhaps not, and it's perhaps why we might be looking at him as another, false nine, as a guy that can kind of just be the final ball, the guy that gets us the goal, as opposed to be the guy that's like building the attack and, releasing it to the finisher. I don't know, but on current display, I just don't think that Raheem Sterling in the build-up is an effective use for him. I think that he's basically the guy that you want to see finish things. And with him not being the greatest finisher, it might not be, the most ideal situation to see him in time and time again. Like I said before, I really do think that this signing in concert with other signings could be fantastic, but this signing on its own is great because we're not paying overs for a guy that's very talented, but it doesn't necessarily address all of our needs right now. We still need somebody that can create opportunities, and we still need another player that can finish these opportunities, like a real center forward. If you have Raheem Sterling on the left or right flanks, and then you're asking him to play like spot minutes as a false nine, I am 100% on board with that. But if you're asking Raheem Sterling to be your left-sided attacker, and then also your false nine, and you're not addressing, a true goal scorer in the side, then I think that might leave something to be desired. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I don't really want to go too far with this, just because I really do think that, for the price point, £45 million, 55 million with add-ons, this guy's a great signing. He's a fantastic signing. You can't see many things that you don't like about that when you consider the price point. You got a guy that's Premier League proven, who scored over 100 goals, assisted over maybe 50 assists as well. A guy that, is adept at stretching defenses, is in the prime of his career. Like, there can't be anything wrong with paying Raheem Sterling, $300K for the things that he does on the pitch extremely well. Obviously there's going to have to be an adaptation. We're going to have to see him, being utilized off the ball a little bit better. And when in possession, he's going to have to try and, integrate himself into our build-up play a little bit more. But, everything else is spot on for me. And I think that he's going to be a fantastic signing for Thomas Tuchel, and a great signing to mark the beginning of the Clear Lake goalie era. Not paying overs for anybody anymore. We come into the side and, find efficient attackers, defenders, midfielders who, can give us a lot for less, So I'm hoping that this is the mark for change, and, with Raheem Sterling coming in, as long as it's not the only signing we see in attacking areas, I think this is going to be great for Chelsea going forward. But until the next one, guys, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high and up to Chelsea. Peace.